The roots of the god Enlil extended to the 5th millennium BC, perhaps in Samara, and then in an Halaf culture. The sign of the double axe was found in Samara in various forms, and was indicative of the beginning of the appearance of the male god. But the double axe appeared clearly in the civilization of Halaf, and signified a male god representing air and rain, and this began to accompany the construction of cities. Enlil forms the root of all powerful gods in later civilizations, such as Marduk the Babylonian, Assyrian, Baal the Canaanite, Greek Zeus, and Roman Jupiter because of his dominance over religious and worldly affairs, and his possession of the functions of the gods close to him. And Enlil is the first example of the worship of the singularity, a declaration of a national god at the expense of the rest of the gods. Therefore, the god Enlil is distinguished by the abundance of his titles and names. He is the master of all countries, the father of all gods, the great mountain, and the god who decides destinies, the god who is irreversible in his decisions, the one with bright eyes, and the god who owns in his hands the tablets of fate. Moreover, the epics of the creation of the universe confirmed that it was the god Enlil who separated the heavens from the earth, and who created the axe as a tool of action. Another of his titles is Avenger, who watches the operation of the laws, punishes the guilty, and who catches them like birds in his large net. The city of Enlil is the first holy Sumerian religious city, Nafar, Nippur, which is 7 kilometers away from Afak subdistrict in Qadisiyah Governorate, and the name of his temple is Ikor, Beit al-Jabal. The secret or symbolic number is 50, and therefore he is the head of the Anunnaki complex, that is, the 50 gods of the earth, and his 50 attributes will later be taken by the god Marduk, his Akkadian counterpart, in the epic of the Akkadian Caliph. This Akkadian procedure was a continuation of the trend of uniqueness that began with Enlil. The Semites called the god Enlil the god Bel, or Baal, who merged with the character of Marduk and later became the most famous god of the Levant in particular, absorbing in his way the qualities of the popular god Demozi or Tammuz and his fertile qualities. Enlil has a temple in Lagash called Temple of the Father, and he has a special minister who is Nisko, the god of fire. This indicates the association of fire with air. He heads with Anu the groups of gods in his court, and being the king of all countries, he grants with his father Anu the highest positions such as king and principality. His word is the wind that implements the decisions of the divine council. If the gods decide to destroy a city, Enlil's word is blown like a storm and destroyed. His word shakes the sky and shakes the earth. And the god Enlil singled out the atmosphere that turned the earth, with the objects and phenomena that appear in it, such as planets, air, storms, and thunder, and because the lower world is located in a space beneath the earth's disk, so it became his specialty, as he gave birth to a son, Nargal, he later became king. Therefore, time, calendar, astronomy, and astrology became implicitly the prerogative of Enlil or one of his sons, because it belongs to the space that belongs to him. He and the god Anu were the cause of the overthrow and destruction of many cities. They were called the masses of the Khotins, and they destroy the Akkadian state by the storms of Enlil. And although it was the god Sin who destroyed and ended the Sumerians, but Enlil was behind this, and he considers it normal as cities must be destroyed after they flourish. He says to his son Sin, and he asks him about the destruction of I have given ownership to but not its content, as ownership forever, since ancient times, when the earth was founded until today, and people have multiplied who saw the authority of a kingdom that remained permanent. However, the god Enlil was described in some texts, contrary to these destructive qualities. He is the merciful god and the owner of urbanism, which is the cause of life, plants, and animals, thus clothes Enlil or absorbs the qualities of the god, Enki. The Sumerian mythological heritage is rich with several myths explaining the creation of humans. There are various Sumerian myths that detail the creation of humanity, each attributing human origins to different elements. These origins include clay and water, plant origin, animal origin, and divine origin, which is the word. We discussed in a previous video the first and most famous Sumerian myth of human creation, which is the myth of clay and water. The protagonists of this myth are Enki, Namu, Ninma, and the clay of the Apsu. However, There are other lesser-known myths about the beginning of human creation, one of which is the myth of Enlil's grasses. In this myth, we see a different approach compared to the previous one, where the god Enlil places the beginnings of humanity, its seeds, in the cracks of the earth. Humans then begin to emerge from these cracks like grass. The concept of this Sumerian myth attributes human creation to the god Enlil, rather than Enki, which does not align with the known functions of Enlil and Enki. Therefore, it is possible that this myth originates from a distant time before Sumerian religious beliefs and mythology were precisely established. In fact, it dates back to a distant place and time, around 5000 BC, when the ancestors of the Sumerians were in the northern part of the Mesopotamian valley, in and around the Samara region. During this period, ancient Iraqis practiced agriculture relying on rainfall, and the appearance of plants resembled grass. In this stage, the beginnings of the male god appeared, represented by the air, which corresponds to the god Enlil, who controls the rain. Below is an excerpt from the myth called the Myth of the Hoe. Lord God, Enlil, may everything that is useful appear bright. May the Lord whose determination of fate cannot affect. May he hasten to separate the heavens from the earth, and he hastened to separate the earth from the heavens. And then a document in Ozomua. The first human appeared, and he dug. He made a rip in the ground and in the area of Duranki, and created the hoe. The day ended. And he decided the duties of work and decided the fate. And the handle of the hoe and the handle of the work are fixed. The glory of God. The night is his hoe, that is, the one who created him. And he brought the hoe to Uzo-Aya and placed the beginnings of man in the cleft. And when humans began to appear like weeds from the earth, the god Enlil was at ease with his Sumerian people. And the god Alununa stood beside him, putting her hands on her mouths, offering prayers to the god Enlil, and placing the hoe in the hands of the Sumerian people. Here ends the text quoted from the Myth of the Hoe. Both gods, Enlil and Enki, were equally concerned with the organization of the universe, each having his own myths. Today, we are delving into a new myth about the organization of the universe, the myth of the god Enlil and the creation of the pickaxe. This myth is mentioned in a poem consisting of 108 lines, 75 of which are in good condition. Some parts of the poem remain unclear. The poem begins with a long introductory section that holds immense importance for the Sumerian concept of the creation and organization of the universe. The texts in the poem state, "The Lord, that which is appropriate verily he caused to appear, the Lord whose decisions are unalterable, Enlil, who brings up the seed of the land from the earth, took care to move away heaven from earth, took care to move away earth from heaven, in order to make grow the creature which came forth, in the bond of heaven and earth, Nippur, he stretched out he brought the pickaxe into existence, the day came forth. He introduced labor, decreed the fate, upon the pickaxe and basket he directs the power. Enlil made his pickaxe exalted, his pickaxe of gold, whose head is of lapis lazuli, the pickaxe of his house, of silver and gold, his pickaxe whose is of lapis lazuli, whose tooth is a one-horned ox ascending a large wall. The Lord called up the pickaxe, decrees its fate. He set the kindu, the holy crown, upon his head. The head of man he placed in the mold. Before Enlil he, man, covers his land. Upon his black-headed people he looked steadfastly. The Anunnaki who stood about him, he placed it, the pickaxe, as a gift in their hands. They soothe Enlil with prayer. They give the pickaxe to the black-headed people to hold. After Enlil had created the pickaxe and decreed its exalted fate, the other important deities add to its powers and utility. The poem concludes with a long passage in which the usefulness of the pickaxe is described in glowing terms. The last lines read, "The pickaxe and the basket build cities, the steadfast house the pickaxe builds, the steadfast house the pickaxe establishes, the steadfast house it causes to prosper. The house which rebels against the king, the house which is not submissive to its king, the pickaxe makes it submissive to the king. Of the bad, plants it crushes the head, plucks at the roots, tears at the crown, the pickaxe spares the plants. The pickaxe, its fate decreed by Father Enlil, the pickaxe is exalted. This phrase introduces the commentary by Mr. Kramer on the poem in question. The translation of this crucial passage may come across as heavy, formal, and somewhat unclear. Readers should bear in mind that while we understand most Sumerian words and phrases, their deeper meanings and nuances often escape us. We still lack a full grasp of the cultural and situational context these words imply. This background, intrinsic to Sumerian mythology and religious practices, was well understood by the Sumerian poet and their audience. However, it remains elusive to us. These contexts are essential for a complete comprehension of the text. For now, sticking closely to the literal translation is our best approach. The myth of Lahar, the cattle god, and his sister Ashnan, the grain goddess, offers a fascinating insight into Sumerian mythology, echoing themes found in the Near Eastern Cain-Abel motif. Created on the sacred hill by Enki, and with their destinies shaped by Enlil, Lahar and Ashnan were brought into existence to provide the Anunnaki, the children and followers of the heaven god An, with essential sustenance and clothing. However, the Anunnaki could not effectively utilize their gifts, leading to the creation of humans to fulfill this need. Initially, humans were portrayed as beings who roamed and consumed like animals, devoid of clothing, reflecting their primal and unrefined state. This view underscores the Sumerian belief in the early human condition, much akin to sheep, underscoring a humble and rudimentary existence. As Lahar and Ashnan's contributions of cattle and grain grew, they brought immense prosperity to the assembly of gods. Yet their success bred conflict, as the siblings indulged in wine and quarreled over their fields and produce, each vying for superiority. This discord necessitated the intervention of Enlil and Enki, who ultimately resolved the dispute by declaring Ashnan, the goddess of grain and agriculture, as superior to Lahar, the god of cattle. The myth highlights the essential role humans played in bridging the gap between divine gifts and their practical application. Humans were created to utilize the bounty of Lahar and Ashnan effectively, transforming their primal existence into a more structured and purposeful life, capable of managing agriculture and livestock. This narrative not only underscores the significance of human creation, but also illustrates the evolution from a simple, animal-like existence to a more developed state, vital for sustaining the divine order. In essence, the tale of Lahar and Ashnan encapsulates the Sumerian worldview on the creation and purpose of humanity, highlighting their pivotal role in ensuring the sustenance and prosperity of the gods through the effective management of cattle and grain. The passage following the introduction is another poetic gem. It describes the descent of Lahar and Ashnan from heaven to earth and the cultural benefits which they bestow on mankind. In those days, Enki says to Enlil, "Father Enlil, Lahar and Ashnan, they who have been created in the Dulcug, let us cause them to descend from the Dulcug." At the pure word of Enki and Enlil, Lahar and Ashnan descended from the Dulcug. For Lahar, they, Enlil and Enki, set up the sheepfold, plants, herbs, and they present to him. For Ashnan, they establish a house, plow and yoke they present to her. Lahar, standing in his sheepfold, is a shepherd increasing the bounty of the sheepfold. Ashnan, standing among the crops, is a maid kindly and bountiful. Abundance of heaven, Lahar and Ashnan caused to appear. In the assembly, they brought abundance. In the land, they brought the breath of life. The decrees of the god they direct. The contents of the warehouses they multiply. The storehouses they fill full. In the house of the poor, hugging the dust, entering they bring abundance. The pair of them, wherever they stand, bring heavy increase into the house. The place where they stand they sate, the place where they sit they supply. They made good the heart of An and Enlil. But then Lahar and Ashnan drank much wine, and so they began to quarrel in the farms and fields. In the arguments which ensued, each deity extolled its achievements and belittled those of its opponent. Finally, Enlil and Enki intervened, but the end of the poem which contains their decision is still wanting. This myth begins with an introductory passage descriptive of the city of Nippur, a Nippur that seems to be conceived as having existed before the creation of man. Behold the bond of heaven and earth, the city. Behold Nippur, the city. Behold the kindly wall, the city. Behold the Idsala, its pure river. Behold the Karkaruna, its quay. Behold the Karasara, its quay where the boats stand. Behold the Pulal, its well of good water. Behold the Idnunbirdu, its pure canal. Behold Enlil, its young man. Behold Ninlil, its young maid. Behold Nunbarshagunu, its old woman. After this brief background sketch, the actual story begins. Nunbarshagunu, the old woman of Nippur, Ninlil's mother, instructs her daughter how to obtain the love of Enlil. In those days the mother, her begetter, gave advice to the maid. Nunbarshagunu gave advice to Ninlil. At the pure river, O maid, at the pure river wash thyself. O Ninlil, walk along the bank of the Idnunbirdu. The bright-eyed, the Lord, the bright-eyed. The great mountain, Father Enlil, the bright-eyed, will see thee. The shepherd who decrees the fates, the bright-eyed, will see thee, he will kiss thee. Ninlil follows her mother's instructions, and as a consequence is impregnated by the water of Enlil and conceives the moon god Nanna. Enlil then departs from Nippur in the direction of the nether world, but is followed by Ninlil. As he leaves the gate, he instructs the man of the gate to give the inquisitive Ninlil no information of his whereabouts. Ninlil comes up to the man of the gate and demands to know whither Enlil has gone. Enlil then seems to take the form of the man of the gate and answers for him. The passage involved is as yet unintelligible. It seems to contain a refusal to divulge Enlil's whereabouts. Ninlil thereupon reminds him that while, true enough, Enlil is his king, she is his queen. Thereupon Enlil, still impersonating the man of the gate, cohabits with her and impregnates her. As a result, Ninlil conceives Meslamtia, more commonly known as Nergal, the king of the netherworld. The myth then continues with the begetting of the netherworld deity Ninazu. This time it is the man of the river of the netherworld, the man-devouring river, whom Enlil impersonates. In all other respects, the passage is a repetition of that describing the begetting of Nergal. Thus, Enlil walked, Ninlil followed. Nunamnir walked, the maid followed. Enlil says to the man of the river of the netherworld, the man-devouring river, O man of the river of the netherworld, the man-devouring river, thy queen Ninlil is coming. If she asks thee about me, tell her not where I am. Ninlil approached the man of the river of the netherworld, the man-devouring river. O man of the river of the netherworld, the man-devouring river Enlil thy king, where is he going? Enlil answers her for the man of the river of the netherworld, the man-devouring river. Enlil, the king of all the lands, has commanded me. The substance of the command is unintelligible. Follows the dialogue between Ninlil and Enlil, the latter impersonating the man of the river of the netherworld, the man-devouring river. Ninlil, true, Enlil is thy king, but I am thy queen. Enlil, if now thou art my queen, let my hand touch thy. Ninlil, the water of thy king, the bright water is in my heart, the water of Nanna, the bright water is in my heart. Enlil, the water of my king, let it go toward heaven, let it go toward earth, let my water, like the water of my king, go toward earth. Enlil, as the man of the river of the nether world, the man-devouring river, lay down in the... He kissed her, he cohabited with her, having kissed her, having cohabited with her, the water of Ninazu, the king of... He caused to flow over her heart. The poem then continues with the begetting of the third underworld deity whose name is illegible. This time it is the man of the boat, whom Enlil impersonates. Our myth then comes to a close with a brief hymnal passage in which Enlil is exalted as the Lord of Abundance and the king whose decrees are unalterable.